What's up, Sooner Nation, and welcome to another edition of the WhackoWeekly Podcast, where we cover all things OU football from this previous week. I'm Steve Curtis, the voice behind Wacko Sooners, and we're still slogging through that rough dead period of February going into early March, where there's little to talk about where football is concerned. I love the weather this time of year. I'm a polar bear. I like it around 40 degrees and cloudy, but I hate how everything is absolutely quiet. There's not a whole lot going on. Luckily, recruiting is a year-round project, and we also have some coaching shifts to talk about from the last couple of weeks. We're going to break it all down right here on Wacko Sooners. If this is your first time joining us, welcome to the Wacko Loop. Be sure to like, comment, and subscribe. Hit that bell button so you never miss an episode. Plus, you can follow us on all of our socials, Instagram, TikTok, and Twitter, all at Wacko Sooners for live news updates, some older game highlights, and of course, some memes and reels to keep it lighthearted and fun, like we like it here in Sooner Nation. And given how bored we are this time of year, we're trying to get some more of those out. So go ahead and hit those follows so you are always in the Wacko Loop. So the first thing that we'll talk about is recruiting, all right? Year-round project. And the 2027 class is looking really nice so far. So we'll break down by position the commits that Oklahoma has, some guys that they're looking to go after, and we will go from there. So first off, Elijah Harmon is a four-star defensive tackle out of Inglewood, California. He's 6'3", 280 pounds. Oklahoma's loving where they are with him right now, and with Todd Bates and Brett Venables and Miguel Chavis being in on that recruitment as well. Just making sure that the defensive tackle room is getting what it needs in the 2027 class. Because after all, after 2025, we lost Dominic Williams and Grayson Halton. They're both going out for the NFL. They've both been invited to the Combine. And right now there's a limited depth behind Jaden Jackson and David Stone. You feel good about Kenny Ozawalu, the transfer from UTSA. But ultimately, you want to bring more talent in there. So Elijah Harmon, that's a great pickup. Oklahoma still feels really good about where they're at with him. Next on the defensive tackle list in terms of commits that Oklahoma has, Devin Robertson, 3-star out of Hattiesburg, Mississippi, about 6 foot tall, 330 pounds approximately. He was down at I believe it was the Navy All-American Bowl or camp game recently in the last couple of weeks. That was when he made his official commitment, along with Taven Epps at linebacker. Oklahoma loves where he's at as well. They're feeling really good about that. And again, depth and development. Oklahoma, with the staff that they've assembled on the defensive side of the ball, you feel really good about what they're going to get out of guys in that front seven early on. Jaden Jackson was a true freshman starting in 2024 and then produced incredibly well in 2025. David Stone took a little bit longer to figure things out, but made his presence known immediately. As for another defensive tackle that is not committed to the University of Oklahoma, but someone that the staff is pushing really hard for, George Toya, not George Stoya, not to be confused with George over at Sooner Scoop, but George Toya, Toia, 4-star out of Trophy Club, Texas, 6'2", 305 pounds. Oklahoma's been pushing really hard. They feel like they're in a solid place, but not a clear leader here, but they're definitely in contention, and they're going to keep pushing for that. Absolutely. Moving on to edge, defensive end, Crew Jones committed, 4-star out of Orem, Utah. He's about 6'4", 230 some odd pounds. This kid, I cannot sing enough praises about one Crew Jones. He's an absolute monster, plays very violently. The state of Utah, he's one of the higher rated, I think he's a top 5 player in the state of Utah, if I'm not mistaken. Absolutely excited about this kid. Love seeing what he does on tape. Just absolute aggression, and put him with Jake Krell, who's going to be a true freshman here in 2026. Those two are going to be an absolutely nasty duo when they're on the field together in 2027 and 2028. Moving on to some other targets at defensive end, you've got Zane Rowe, 4-star out of Denton Geyer, same high school as the Bowen brothers, Jackson Arnold. Feel really good about where Oklahoma is there. He's 6'4", 255, so already built like the guy that you're going to need to come in, maybe chim him down a little bit depending on what you want to do with him. But this guy is one that I'm really excited about. Zane Rowe is going to be an absolute monster. Oklahoma feels really good about where they are with him, and it would not surprise me if when he makes his commitment, or his decision, I should say, and therefore commitment, here in the next couple of weeks, which it's coming. It's coming down the pike very quickly. Zane Rowe, I believe, I'm going to pencil him in as a commit to the University of Oklahoma. Moving a bit further back to linebacker, Oklahoma has one commit there, 4-star Taven Epps out of Tustin, California, 6'3", 226. Congratulations to Stacey Ford and just continuing to cook with the Cali Sooners and just going out there and picking stud after stud off the West Coast. Love getting in with that. Watching him at the same Navy All-American Bowl that Devin Robertson was in several weeks ago. You could play him at edge, but his instincts at linebacker are just so much better. That's not to say he can't play edge. He can, absolutely. But at linebacker, he's just very fluid, does a great job of reading the backs, reading the protections, and getting where he needs to go in order to make a play and blow it up. Now, this next one that is not committed to Oklahoma, I'm actually really excited about. I would love this grab. Now, a lot of people have already penciled it in, given who his dad is. But Cooper Witten, son of Oklahoma's tight ends coach Jason Witten. Jason was hired about a month ago to replace Joe John Finley. But Cooper, he's a 5-star out of Argyle, Texas at Liberty Christian. He's about 6'1.5", 220. Number 1 linebacker in the 2027 class. Get it. That is all I have to say to this front office and coaching staff. Go get him. And I honestly think that it is penciled in, given that Jason Witten's his dad, and Jason Witten's coaching at the University of Oklahoma, and Brent Venables, Nate Dreiling, and Wes Goodwin would turn him into an absolute monster. So I think that one's pretty well set in stone. I was a little nervous about the fact that Cooper didn't automatically commit to Oklahoma pretty much within a week of his dad being hired in Norman. But of course, it would make sense if he wants to further explore his options. Totally get it. Do your thing, man. Another kid on the board here, Case Alexander, 3-star out of Washington, Oklahoma, 6'2", 195. That's been on and off. And he's got a family connection to Penn State. His older brother went to Iowa State and then followed their coach over to Penn State this offseason. So there's that to be considered. Now, the perception that would come around with if this Oklahoma staff doesn't pull in Case Alexander and he goes to Penn State and follows his brother, the question is, why is this defensive staff losing in-state kids to out-of-state programs? Well, dude, you can't. There's no way you can account for losing him to the family connection. So, and I still think that Oklahoma will be able to find plenty of other younger linebackers to plug in their 2027 class if they don't get Case Alexander. I know a lot of people have been really excited about it, but ultimately it's a matter of, dude, if you can get him, great. If not, it's not a negative statement on the overall outlook or production of this coaching staff and the front office in terms of recruiting. Moving on into the secondary, at corner, you've got Michael McCreary, 4-star corner out of San Antonio, Texas, 6 foot, 170 pounds. And then Michael Davis, 3-star out of Goodyear, Arizona, 5'11", 170. Now these two committed quite a while ago, back in the fall, if I'm not mistaken. And you thought initially with the loss of Jay Valai about 2 weeks ago to the Buffalo Bills cornerback job that you might see some shakiness from Michael McCreary and Michael Davis. Those kids have both come out and said, yeah, no, we're good. We're staying here. This is where we want to be. Wise decision, in my opinion, especially with the hire of Lamar Morgan last week to replace Jay Valai. I think that Morgan's going to do a great job coming in with the talent that's already in that cornerback room. And these kids are going to get to know him over the next year, and they're going to feel really comfortable with him, and they're going to stick it out with Oklahoma. And Michael Davis, he does not look like a 3-star. Kid plays like a freaking monster. Absolutely ridiculous. And that's a testament to the front office and their evaluation process in finding these less sunshine pumped kids that are going to be far less expensive than the higher tier 4-stars and all the 5-stars that are going to produce for you really well. That's my humble opinion there. Some other corners that are on the short list that have not yet committed, 2 that they're really looking at, Gabe Osborne and Juju Johnson. Osborne's a 4-star out of Mustang, Oklahoma, 6'2", 180. Juju Johnson's 4-star out of Long Beach, California, 5'11", 170. These two you'd really love to get. I have a feeling that Oklahoma is going to go very corner heavy in 2027 because after 2026, you probably lose Eli Bowen. And then you have Cortland Guillory for one more year. You have Tristan Haynes for one, maybe 2 more years. And you have Jeremiah Newcomb for probably 1 or 2 more years. And then, of course, losing Jacoby Johnson after 2026. So you're going to want to have some younger talent to plug in behind Cortland Guillory, Tristan Haynes, and Jeremiah Newcomb after the 2026 season. So they're going to go very corner heavy in this class. Another that they're looking at is Trenton Blaylock, 4-star out of Humboldt, Texas, 6', 165. Younger brother of Torrey Blaylock. They're at running back already at Oklahoma. They're really taking a look at him. It's a matter of how high he is on the board. If they can get him, I think they probably would take him. Absolutely. Then another one is Darius Johnson, a 3-star out of Murrieta, California. His older brother, Derek, is a true freshman this season in Oklahoma's 2026 class. At safety, the whole Samaj Stanford thing is just in and out. We never really know where we're at here, and it is something that's kind of going to go down to the wire. Oklahoma's not leading right now. But 4-star safety out of Broken Arrow, Oklahoma, another in-state kid that you want to get your hands on just for building a fence around the state of Oklahoma. But he's 5'11", 180, plays really well. It's a matter of, can Oklahoma bring him in? Now moving over to the offensive side of the ball, and we'll try to speed things up here because we're going a little slow. But on the O-line, of course, you've got your 3 commits already. Cooper Hackett, 5-star out of Fort Gibson, Oklahoma, 6'6", 250. Love him. All right. And then right behind him, Caden Penny, 4-star out of Bixby, Oklahoma, 6'4", 280. Those are the top 2 offensive linemen in, I think, the entire class. Let's double check this, actually. Let's check on threes. O-line recruits for 2027. Let's check that. Top football recruits. Can we do this? Let's see. So offensive line, yeah, so Cooper Hackett out at offensive tackle is the 3rd rated offensive lineman in the class. And then if you move over to, actually, I believe Caden Penny. Let's double check this. Yeah, Caden Penny's down at number 5. So you have Cooper Hackett at number 3, and you have Caden Penny at 5. They're the top 2 recruits in the state of Oklahoma. You love what you're getting with the 2 of them to plug in behind Deacon Schmidt coming in 2026, Michael Fasusi and Ryan Foje already starting on that offensive line in 2025, and then Eddie Pierre-Louis as well, going to be a redshirt sophomore this fall. You love what Bill Bedenbaugh is building there on the offensive line. Luke Wilson as well in this class, 2027, 3-star out of Southlake, Texas, 6'6", 290. Really excited about bringing him in. 2 other kids that you'd probably want to bring in with this offensive line class as well. They're loading up on the O-line as well in terms of recruiting. Gus Corsair, 4-star out of Hays, Kansas. He's 6'2.5", 285. And Tyson Ross, 3-star out of Andover, Kansas, 6'5", 290. They've been on campus recently. They went to a basketball game. I believe it was early to middle of last week. Now, granted, the basketball program is in shambles right now. We're losing everything except when the popcorn machine catches on fire. That's when we win a game. But they've been pursued very heavily by this coaching staff, and OU feels like they're in really good positions there as well. Feeling like Gus Corsair is going to be a grab. Not totally sure about Tyson Ross just yet, but they're feeling pretty good about it. Running back, this plays directly into what we'll be talking about next, so we'll go over this one very briefly. Jackson Stokes, 3-star running back out of Chatsworth, California, 5'9", 175. Committed to Oklahoma to DeMarco Murray with DeMarco's departure, which we will talk about here a little bit later. Jackson Stokes came out and said he's committed to Oklahoma. He's not going anywhere. 3-star Keldred Ben out of Montgomery, Texas, 5'10", 208. He's been going on other visits, and this was before the DeMarco Murray departure. So it's just a matter of he's exploring his options, which in this environment of college football, nobody can really blame him. Then a 2028 recruit that we will dive into a little bit more here later, but we're going to mention him briefly because he's the only 2028 recruit committed at this moment in time. Micah Rhodes, 4-star running back, Spring, Texas. He's 5'9", 180. Number 3 running back in the class. Number 42 player overall in 2028. Oklahoma's excited about this, but it's a matter of can they keep him after the departure of DeMarco Murray. We will talk about that in the very next segment, I promise. At tight end, Jason Witten is firing all over the place and making big pushes on every kid he can get his hands on. Number 1 tight end in the class, Seneca Driver, 4-star out of Danville, Kentucky, 6'6", 234. Kid plays some really good hoops, too. I'm not going to lie. Dude's not just a great tight end. He's a freak athlete. Oklahoma loves where they're at with him. Jason Witten is cooking, from what I've been told. A couple other tight ends that they're looking at. Ben Kolar from Norman, Oklahoma, 6'3", 225, 3-star. Jason Witten's pushing on that. Again, the in-state kids, the OK Preps, all right? And then I believe Brock Williams is another one they're looking at out of Liberty, Illinois, 6'5", 210. And then Titus Hawk, a 4-star out of Choctaw, Oklahoma. This kid's pretty big, 6'7". That was not a 6'7" joke, and 210 pounds. Witten's cooking. He's pushing really hard, trying to improve the recruiting to Oklahoma in the tight end room. That's something that's been lacking in the last several years under Joe John Finley, and it's something that needs to be rectified. And also the coaching onto the field and development. That needs to be improved as well, and I think Jason Witten's going to do a really good job. Final 2 positions here. At this moment in time, Oklahoma's got only 2 wide receivers committed in this 2027 class. You've got Damari DeJearn, 4-star out of Pacific Palisades at 5'10", 170, and then Traven Hall, 3-star out of, I believe, where is it in Alabama he's from again? I believe it's Birmingham. Let's see here. No, Tuscaloosa. All right, so he's from Tuscaloosa, 3-star, 6 foot, 180 pounds. He's getting some more attention from Alabama, being in their backyard, a little bit from Auburn, I believe, as well. Florida's taking a look, Ole Miss, and they're kind of pushing their way in there. But right now, Oklahoma loves where they're at. Emmett Jones has been doing a really good job on the recruiting trail the last couple of years. It's just a matter of can we start seeing those guys break into the rotation. I'm looking at you, Elijah Thomas and Emmanuel Choice. Yes, I know that you've got Isaiah Satania, Trell Harris, and Parker Livingston ahead of you, and Jermichael Carter. But get in here a little bit, show that Emmett Jones can produce, so then kids will commit to him even more, or more better kids will commit to him even more. 3-star quarterback, Jamison Roberts out of Saraland, Alabama, 6'2", 190. Kid's exciting. And he's a guy that Ben Arbuckle really likes. Now, of course, with Bo Bentley coming on the scene, you'll have him probably playing at least 3 years. I assume they will plan to redshirt his 2026 season, so that gives you 27, 28, and 29. So I don't know if bringing in a 2027 quarterback is uber necessary. Granted, you always want at least 1 quarterback per class, always. What his future will be at Oklahoma, I don't know. But we will find out over time. Now, from what we've been hearing on the recruiting trail, just in general, Oklahoma's been in a really strong competitive position with about 20 of the top 100 recruits. That's crazy, dog. I haven't seen Oklahoma recruit like this in a very long time. There's a real possibility, honestly, with this recruiting class that Oklahoma brings in 5 or more of those kids. Now, granted, they've already got Caden Penny and Cooper Hackett. That's a done deal. I bet you they get Jason Witten. Cooper Witten. Both Wittens. They'll have both Wittens in the bag by January of next year. They've already got 1. But Cooper Witten, that'll be 3. Expect, I'd say probably Seneca Driver as well, so that's 4. Leave room for 2, maybe 3 more as well. They're doing a great job here. Absolutely love this. Now, if they do, Oklahoma will have a top 5 recruiting class in 2027. I believe, let's look at On3's recruiting class rankings. I believe Oklahoma is currently sitting at number 3. No, down to number 4 now. That's interesting. So Ohio State sitting at number 1 with 9 commits, 2 5-stars, 4 5-stars, and 2 3-stars. Georgia's got a total of 6 commits with 1 5, 4 2s, and 1 5, 2 4s, and 3 3s. Okay. Texas Tech has 4, a 5 and 3 4s. Yet Oklahoma's got 13. They've got 1 5 and 6 4s. I don't understand that. Oklahoma with 13 commits, over half of them, so 7 of the 13 being blue chippers. Oklahoma right now has 7 4 and 5 stars. Texas Tech has 4. Georgia has 3. Ohio State has 7. Okay. I get why Ohio State would be 1 because they have 2 5s and 5 4s, but Oklahoma's got 1 5 and 6 4s. My opinion, Oklahoma should be number 2 right now. They should be above Georgia and Texas Tech. That's crazy to me. I don't understand how that works. I don't know how Rivals on 3 does its grading, but it is what it is. Point is, this 2027 class is getting really exciting. It's looking really good, and they're not even done. They're going to be mostly done, I would expect, by when official visit season starts there in June for Champion Barbecue. I think they're going to be mostly set and add their final pieces and be ready to go for the fall and just keep them in the building all fall for the season and get them ready for early enrollment next January. So moving on from recruiting, that did take quite a while, but we had a major coaching shift this week, one that definitely should be addressed. So DeMarco Murray, Oklahoma legend as a player, running backs coach of the last 6 years. It was reported on Wednesday night of last week that DeMarco Murray departed for the Kansas City Chiefs running backs coach job. Now, I know that this one's going to be a little controversial, a bit of a controversial topic among the fan base, because obviously some people love DeMarco, especially as a player. Others hated him. And there's a lot of layers to both sides of this, all right? And we'll dive into all that here in a minute. But in short, Andy Reid, when Andy Reid, head coach of the Kansas City Chiefs, calls you and says, hey, I want you to come coach running backs here in KC, you freaking take it, dude. That's an incredible opportunity right there. And the timeline for this entire thing was about a week before the hiring was announced. Andy Reid reached out to Brent Venables, asking his permission to interview DeMarco. So mad respect to Andy Reid. What a gentleman, honestly. In this world where it's, coaches dipping in the middle of the night, blah, 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 forcing other schools to pull up bidding wars, Lane Kiffin, LSU in Florida. So ultimately, I just think that's a really class act on Andy Reid's part. Now, as to why DeMarco took the job, just think about the stability and overall the annual schedule, the differences there between college and the NFL right now. Because the NFL has an actual offseason. College coaches, they are working 24/7, 365. If it's not in game planning and coaching and practices during the season or during spring ball or fall camp, you're recruiting all the time. You're recruiting all the time. You are negotiating with agents who are trying to get better terms for their guys all the time. There's too much variability as well, season to season, in terms of roster turnover, results, the rules and regulations that keep coming in and out. The environment of college is just insane. It's fast-paced, and it's absolutely just nuts. And it's got to be absolutely exhausting. Versus the NFL, you're working pedal to the metal about half of the year. And you have an actual off-season. You have incredible stability around an NFL roster compared to college. You've got a stable quarterback in Patrick Mahomes that's been there for a while and will probably be there for a while. Prayers to Mahomes on his ACL injury. Hope he gets better and he's ready to go by the fall. And then, of course, the Chiefs are an incredibly well-organized organization, or well-run organization. So all that together just makes a whole lot of sense as to if you want to take a load off in coaching, or not necessarily a load off, but not just be caught up in the constant go, 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 have a little bit more time to breathe. Absolutely understands that it makes sense. Ultimately, congratulations to DeMarco. He's worked really hard the last 6 years at Oklahoma. He's earned this opportunity completely. Now, where the fan feelings meter comes into this, we all know DeMarco was a legend as a player, all right? Absolute freakazoid. Had a major role in contributing to Oklahoma's offense in those late 2000s, right? with Sam Bradford going to the national championship. And he was a stud for the Cowboys when he went pro, offensive player of the year. His resume alone made him an excellent recruiter, and he's always brought incredible talent in his recruiting classes. Every time he gets a really good running back or two. But the problem is that none of those guys ever really got going. But Steve, what about Kennedy Brooks, Ramondre Stevenson, Eric Gray? DeMarco didn't recruit those guys, and they'd already had a lot of development done by the time he got a hold of them. Every single one of DeMarco's running backs that he recruited and then developed had no more than 600 yards in a season, with the exception of Gavin Sawchuk getting up to 744 yards back in 2023. The singular exception to that. Javonte Barnes, highly touted coming out of high school, never broke 600 yards. Gavin Sawchuk, his freshman year in 2022, was not that productive. And his junior season I guess it would have been his redshirt sophomore season in 2025, he was injured all the time. And when he was healthy, he still didn't produce very well. Went to Florida State this year and did relatively well, but he transferred again. Then you have Taylor Tatum, number one running back in the 2024 class. Kid had 278 yards his freshman season with 4 fumbles. And he had 1 carry for minus a singular yard in 2025. It's been bust after bust after bust. Now, Torrey Blaylock and Xavier Robinson, X in 2025, towards the back part of that season when he finally appeared on the scene, did really well for what time he was given. And then 2025, he was injured a good bit the first half of the season, came back, got banged up again. Torrey Blaylock also played really well, but neither of them went over 500 yards. I think Torrey had 480 and X had around 240. Or no, that's not quite right. Let's take a look at this, actually. Let's double check that. Let's see. In 2025, he had... Oh, okay. X had 421, not 221. Yeah, I was thinking for a second. I'm like, that's not right. He had 2 games over 100 yards. Now, there needs to be some grace given to DeMarco about the development of his running backs, because after all, it's not his fault that Gavin Sawchuk and Javonte Barnes were injured all the time. And the injuries on the offensive line in 2024 were not his fault. But when all those other pieces for a solid run game were healthy, his guys, the offensive line, the pass game working, the lack of consistent and elite production out of his running backs, given their talent level, blue chip guys, all of them, totally unacceptable. Actually, let's double check that on Xavier Robinson as well. Let's check his recruiting profile, because I believe, okay, X was a 3. X was a 3-star, but ultimately just over and over, DeMarco got amazing talent, and none of them have panned out in an incredibly elite way. They've done well, but the guys that he's brought in, he's not been able to develop to be 1,000-yard guys, which unfortunately stinks. Now, I have given him plenty of flack. I've given DeMarco plenty of flack here on Wacko Sooners, especially back in the midseason of 2025 with the lack of the run game. So I totally agree with the complaints about DeMarco Murray. Being a great recruiter, which he was objectively, does not always equal being a good coach. And based on the results on the field and on the stat sheets, that's absolutely true. However, that doesn't speak to DeMarco's career as a player, that his coaching career at Oklahoma will have no negative impact, I think, on our view of him as a player back in the 2000s. But also kind of on a character level, right? The role that DeMarco has served in the lives of these guys that come in and out of the Switzer Center, and he's just a total dude. All right? Now, back when Lincoln Riley decided that he was going to leave Oklahoma, Oklahoma goes up to Stillwater. They lose to Oklahoma State with Caleb Williams, and 24 hours later, Lincoln Riley was getting ready to leave and go out to USC until Bob Stoops called him and chewed him out, saying you need to have a meeting with your team and your coaches, and you need to look them in the eye and you need to tell them you're leaving. So Lincoln Muleshoe Riley had the meeting, and according to many sources in that meeting room that day, Riley was crying a bunch of crocodile tears about how it was a difficult decision, how he didn't want to leave, blah, blah, blah. Oh, man, I wish I could stay. It's just, I think this is the best decision for me. DeMarco Murray stood up and called his ass out saying something along the lines of, man, stop your expletive crying. Stop being another expletive term, neither of which I can repeat on here. But you can fill in the blanks here. Stop being a wuss. Stop your little girl crying or wussy crying. Just absolute legend for standing up for the players and coaches who were being abandoned without so much as a word or a thought, and were being treated with such disrespect, in my opinion. Of like, Riley could have just owned up to it and said, you know what, guys, I think my time here's run its course. I'm going to leave, is what it is, and then offered the coaches and players the opportunity to come with him if they wanted, which he did that second part, offering everyone an opportunity to come with him. But instead, he made a big show of, oh, I don't want to go. Oh, this is an emotional thing for me. No, it wasn't, buddy. And DeMarco called him on it and told him to man up and own up to it. Other players stood up as well, or other coaches, and then some players also stood up. So that leading the charge of defending the program, mad respect to DeMarco there. He was incredibly loyal to the University of Oklahoma, pursued by many a high-tier college program over the last few years. Ohio State was after him last year in the offseason, and he didn't leave. And he's not left Oklahoma for another collegiate program. He's left Oklahoma for the NFL. So mad respect. Go get him, DeMarco. I'm not going to praise his production at running back as the running backs coach at Oklahoma, but I'm going to praise him as a player and his role as a leader for these young guys and his elite character. So go get him, DeMarco. We're really proud of you. So now the final segment that we're going to talk about today, search for a new running backs coach. So with DeMarco gone, we're obviously in need of a coach at the running back position. I don't think there's going to be any problem bringing in a solid guy. First off, the obvious reason. And this rang true with Jay Valai last week. DeMarco Murray just went and got grabbed up by one of the premier NFL programs of the day. He put in the time, he put in the work, and he got a huge payout 6 years later. Jay Valai had his 4 years teaching the cornerbacks at Oklahoma, and he got hired by the Bills. So college coaches are going to see, college coaches that want to go to the NFL, they're going to see, okay, I come to Oklahoma, I do my job for a couple of years. I'm going to get a really nice job up to the NFL. If I put in the work, I'm going to get bigger fish opportunities down the road. Absolutely. And Oklahoma provides their coaches with the ability to improve their skills, not only as technicians of their position, but also in administration roles and coordinator roles and assistant roles outside of just their position group. Now, second, there's some really good talent in this running back room, all right? We've already seen Xavier Robinson and Torrey Blaylock. They're going to be great next year with a stronger offensive line and some better coaching, hopefully. And then add to it, you've got two great freshmen coming in, Jonathan Hatton and Zephan Walker, both of whom, according to all reports in spring practice, or no, I guess winter workouts and just winter measurings and just the testing that goes on with that, they're doing really well. And they're impressing a lot, and they're going to see some time this year. But this is a solid running back room that a coach is going to look at and say, you know what, I can work with that. Might not be as perfect as I want it, but I can do stuff with this. I can mess with it. Now, as for the short list or the hot board for potential candidates, we'll go through probably the big four here, and then we'll just briefly mention the last few. So Deshaun Foster, the former head coach and running backs coach out of UCLA. Now, as for the short list for replacements for DeMarco Murray, we'll go through the first few before just lightly mentioning a couple others. Deshaun Foster, former head coach and running backs coach out of UCLA. He served as UCLA's running backs coach for years, stepped up in 2024 as an interim head coach, then was fired mid-2025 due to a very poor record. It was kind of a no-win situation. He was a bit out of his depth at the helm at UCLA, but he had a productive career as a player, comes highly recommended as a position coach, great technician. And he was already being courted earlier this offseason by Oklahoma for an analyst role, so there's already some communication there. Has more ties to California, which would be great for recruiting, as OU's been breaking into that area more and more and more on the West Coast with Stacey Ford's help. I think that would be a solid pickup if that's where Oklahoma decides to go. Next on the hot board, we've got Mark Atuaya. I think I'm pronouncing that right. If I'm wrong, I sincerely apologize. running backs coach out of Utah. He's very familiar with Ben Arbuckle and Stacy Ford from their days together at Wazoo. He was Arbuckle's running backs coach in the early 2020s with John Mateer and Cam Ward. Wayshawn Parker, Wazoo's lead running back in 2024, produced very well, 735 yards, an average of 5.4 and 4 touchdowns. Transferred to Utah with Mark Atuaya for 2025, where he showed drastic improvement against an even tougher schedule than what the Pac-12 was facing in 2024, with Utah being now in the Big 12. Wayshawn Parker had 931 yards, 6.6 average, and 6 touchdowns. I had the unfortunate privilege as a secondary Baylor fan to watch Wayshawn Parker rip apart the Baylor Bears in McLean Stadium down here in Waco. So that was a little rough to watch, but I got a full sample of Mark Atuaya. So I think that would be a great grab as well if you decide to go that route. The familiarity with Arbuckle and Ford would be huge. I expect Arbuckle is going to push for this one because of the familiar aspect with that. And knowing the system will be huge for Torrey Blaylock and Xavier Robinson and the younger guys as well. Another option we have is Tashard Choice, running backs coach for the Detroit Lions. Now, for those who don't know, Tashard was a player at OU for a little while. He redshirted the 2003 season, pulled a hamstring in 2004, which allowed Adrian Peterson to start over him and set that whole thing off where AP was an absolute monster. And then after the 2004 season, Choice actually applied for a medical hardship and transferred to Georgia Tech to be closer to family. He had some family members going through some medical challenges at the time, wanted to be close to them, help take care of them. And then in his 3 years at Georgia Tech, Tashard Choice had 3,646 total yards, 27 touchdowns. So 3,365 of those yards were rushing, 281 receiving, average of 5 yards per carry. All of his touchdowns were rushing. He was a 4th-round pick to the Dallas Cowboys. Wasn't nearly as explosive in the NFL, but gained a lot of experience, and after a few years went into coaching, became a coaching intern in Dallas before going to North Texas, where he was a coaching assistant, became the running backs coach in 2018, went back to Georgia Tech for 2019, 2020, and 2021 as the running backs coach before he was hired by the Texas Longhorns down in Austin for 2022 to 2024. And that Texas rushing attack those 3 years saw great production. All right. Combined between their top 2 rushers each of those years, they had well over 1,000 yards. In 2022, Texas had Bijan Robinson with almost 1,600 yards and 18 touchdowns. 2023, you had Jonathan Brooks and CJ Baxter for a combined total of, I think it was near 1,800 yards and 15 touchdowns. 2024, you had Trey Wisner and Jaden Blue with, between the two of them, about 1,800 yards and I believe it was 13 touchdowns. Now, of course, what happens the first year you don't have Tashard Choice? Trey Wisner, who was a 1,000-yard rusher in 2024, had fewer than 600 yards on the ground, and he was Texas's lead rusher, period, actually. So that's a pretty good litmus test to that. Now, of course, people will say, but the offensive line at Texas wasn't that good this year. That's true. But you still take a 1,000-yard rusher and make him a 600-yard rusher. That's not a good look. And then, of course, Trey Wisner transferred after 2025. Now, looking at where Tashard Choice has been in Detroit, looking at the Lions' running attack this year, or this past season, already is a great testament to what Tashard Choice is able to do. Jahmyr Gibbs had 1,200-plus yards, 13 touchdowns, and David Montgomery had 700-plus yards, 8 touchdowns. I think this would be a great choice for Oklahoma if they could lure him from the pro ranks back to the college level. Talking about that destabilizing environment in college football right now, part of why DeMarco Murray probably left. I don't see it happening. I don't think it will happen. No, I understand why this is on the hot board, though. I'd like it quite a bit if Oklahoma could make it happen. Now, my personal favorite, running backs coach out of Missouri, one Curtis Looper. I'm actually pumped about this, and we'll get into his resume and why. He's got great experience. First of all, he's 60 years old, so he's had decades to hone his craft, and that's not me razzing on him for his age. But here's the thing that just really screams to me, okay? His production at running back this last several years at Mizzou has been amazing. 2020, you have Larry Roundtree for 970 plus yards, 14 touchdowns. Tyler Beatty along with him at 240 yards with 4 touchdowns. So that right there, combine those two, that's over 1,000 yards. 2021, Tyler Beatty went and developed 1,604 yards, 6-yard average, 14 touchdowns. Development, baby. 2022, Cody Schrader, 745 yards, 9 touchdowns, with Nathaniel Pete for 438 yards and 2 touchdowns. The next year, 2023, Cody Schrader pops off for 1,600 yards and 14 touchdowns. Literally the same level of elite production in year 2 as Tyler Beatty in 2021. And then Nathaniel Pete played a little bit less, had 317 yards, 3 touchdowns. Then, of course, in 2024, you see this pattern established where you have a year where you have 2 pretty solid backs, no one goes absolutely crazy. And then year 2 for that first level running back, he pops off and goes well over 1,000 yards. And that holds true every single year. You've got 2024, you had Nate Knoll and Marcus Carroll. Knoll had 800 yards. Carroll had about 600 between the two of them, 15 touchdowns. And then 2025, you have Ahmad Hardy, absolute monster with the most yards after contact this season with 1,649 yards, average of 6.4 and 16 touchdowns. All right. There was a while that he was in the Heisman conversation. And then I know that Curtis Looper didn't have Kawan Lacey in 2025, but he recruited him to Mizzou for 2024. And Kawan Lacey, he did transfer to Ole Miss, but looking at what he's done this year, Kawan Lacey in 2025 had 1,567 yards, so an average of 5.1 yards, 24 touchdowns. Curtis Looper can identify talent. And he can develop it because you see what he did with Tyler Beatty. You can see what he did with Cody Schrader. His 6-year tenure at Mizzou gives him an excellent stat sheet for what his guys are able to do. Moral of the story of going through all his guys, and I know that I probably lost you on some of the numbers, but the moral of the story is Curtis Looper, he gets solid recruits and develops them. By year 2, they're absolute studs. Beatty and Schrader are the perfect examples of this. Again, slow first year. Then they both went off for over 1,600 yards in the SEC. And then the supporting cast of running backs at RB2, those guys are excellent as well, and they're able to supplement it. This would be my first choice, looking at the production that he's been able to bring up. And fun fact, Curtis Looper actually coached Torrey Blaylock's dad, Derek, at Stephen F. Austin University back in the 90s. That could play into this a little bit. Derek, Papa Blaylock, give him a call, please. That would make my February. All right, so a couple of more names on this short list here for running backs coach. You got Tommy Robinson, currently running backs coach at UTSA. He's got history at LSU, A&M, and Texas. That would be solid, I think. Dude has a lot of experience recruiting the Texas area, coaching in the Texas area. Oklahoma recruits Texas a lot, absolutely, and experience in the SEC would be great. Next, Norval McKenzie, recently hired as Virginia Tech's running backs coach. He spent 2025 at Georgia Tech, did a really good job. Then Jaden Everett at Wisconsin. That's another one to keep an eye on. Cam Martin at FSU. So he just took this job at running backs coach for 2026. He was at 2025, or he was at Tulsa in 2025. That's someone that the coaching staff is really thinking about. That's one that's, I guess, less highly sought after than, say, Curtis Looper or Tashard Choice, but definitely someone to keep an eye on. And then, of course, my personal favorite from this back half of this short list that we're just kind of briefly mentioning, Keenan Hall at Baylor. Now, Keenan Hall, he's my favorite in this back half of the short list. Being at Baylor, a program that is not pumping all of their money from the university into football, which stinks as a Baylor fan or secondary Baylor fan. I'm about to go off on a Baylor tangent here because I do like Baylor football to an extent. But the fact of the matter is that Baylor is not what it needs to be in football to be recruiting, coaching, and developing at an elite level. Keenan Hall, despite these limitations, has been doing a really good job and recruiting very well in the state of Texas. Last time I checked, again, Oklahoma recruits in Texas a lot. So those connections that he's made could be really helpful. Imagine he gets the resources that Oklahoma's devoting specifically to football. Some Texas kids could do really nice at Oklahoma. Now, of course, that's not a shot at Baylor saying Baylor can't produce, the funds to get their football program where it needs to be. I know for a fact, having lived the Baylor experience, that Baylor gets the money that they can pump into the football program. They just don't. I think that Keenan Hall would be a great choice to replace DeMarco Murray. But personally, my favorite's Curtis Looper with that great recruiting and development process that he's had at Mizzou the last several years. Well, Sooner Nation, that's going to wrap it up for this edition of the Wacko Weekly Podcast, where we break down all things OU football from this previous week. If this was your first time joining us, hope you've enjoyed it. Be sure to like, comment, and subscribe. Hit that bell button so you never miss a thing. We would love to have you join us here in the Wacko Loop. So please go hit those subscribes. We'd love it. And then, of course, go follow us on all of our socials, Instagram, TikTok, and Twitter, all at Wacko Sooners for more live news updates, game highlights, and, of course, some memes to keep it lighthearted and fun like we like it here in Sooner Nation. Go hit those follows, okay? Subscribe, follow, like, whatever you want to do, as long as it's something, so you are always in the Wacko Loop. That being said, Sooner Nation, have a great week. Boomer Sooner.